let's take a look at using stage anchors to change states. Now, we talked a moment ago about going from skepticism, that's S with a circle around it on the board, to curiosity, that's C with a circle around it on the board, to motivation, that's M with a circle around it on the board. And the big square around everything is the stage, or the defined area where you will be. And by the way, when someone indicates that this is a stage, that you're supposed to stay there, you don't really have to. Sometimes going out into the audience can be interesting. Sometimes going out of the room and coming back can get people's interest, especially if you're mic'd and it's a wireless mic and you can go out of the room and come back. Now, don't do it just to do it, but if you can work it into your routine to what you're doing, it can be interesting and it can open people's eyes because they think, wow, he went off stage or he went out of the room. He or she did that and I didn't know they could do that. So when you do that kind of thing, or even go sit in the audience with someone next to them, it can get a laugh and it can make things interesting and break things up a little bit. And it can show people that you're not stuck to that stage. But let's take a look at the stage, the defined area where you typically would be standing or sitting, and look at areas on the stage. So here, what we've done is installed anchors for these different things. An anchor for skepticism, an anchor for curiosity, and an anchor for motivation. So at each of these steps, you realize that you can stand in a certain place. The circles represent you standing in that place. Okay, so if you're installing an anchor for skepticism, the S with a circle around it, you would stand at that part of the stage. Now, it doesn't matter where it is. I've just arbitrarily chosen these locations. They can be anywhere on the stage, as long as they're not in the same spot. They each have to have their own spot to be separate anchors. But to install an anchor for skepticism, all you have to do is stand in your area where you decided skepticism would be and start talking about skepticism. Describe it using the VAK, work in OG if possible, if it fits, if it's not too much of a stretch. Of course, it's possible, but if it seems like you're forcing it, then as often does seem the case with O and G, then don't worry about it. Talking about how skepticism tastes, for example, may seem a little odd. So that's why in many cases we just stick to VAK. But you're describing in as much detail as possible, using the senses, the idea of skepticism. When I feel skeptical, I just see everything as not being true. Everything I hear, it just sounds like nonsense. Everything that I'm feeling about me just feels like it's just not right. That's how skepticism feels. That's how skepticism looks. That's how skepticism sounds. Okay? Then I'm moving to curiosity. I'm moving to another part of the stage, and I'm just talking about curiosity. And you can do this as you're changing their states. In the exercise a moment ago, we talked about changing states. You can do this while you're moving to different parts of the stage. So at the same time, you're installing anchors for these things on the stage, and you're taking them on this transition journey. So then I move to my curiosity part of the stage, and I anchor curiosity. When I feel curious, I do this and that. Or you can do it along with your story. Remember the story of me at the University of Florida? Then I started to get curious about it. When I got curious, I started to read. I started to go to psychology seminars. I started to walk to the seminars. You can involve all of the kinesthetic sense. I remember myself walking into the seminar and sitting down and being so tuned into what they're saying, so interested in what they're saying. I don't even have to use the word curious if I don't want to. Just involving all of the senses, at least the VAK. And then on the journey, I then move over physically to the motivation area. Then I got really pumped up about psychology. I started teaching little classes about it to my other students. I started tutoring other students. And I'm looking for ways to work in the VAK is what I'm doing. So I'm talking about how I was pumped up in terms of the VAK. What have I done? I've done two things at the same time. I've taken them on this transition journey, and I've also installed these anchors now. So now I have the anchors. Now if at any time I sense the audience is going to skepticism again, let's say I introduce a new technique that they haven't heard before. Everybody suddenly crosses their arms. I can tell there's skepticism in the audience. I can move back over there, and now just by walking around the room, by walking on the stage, I can take them on that journey. I've already anchored these states. I can just walk from one to the other, and I can watch their state change as I walk. So you have got some powerful anchors installed already just by virtue of taking the time to do this. Then later on, let's say that you just want to use one of them. Now, skepticism isn't going to be resourceful as a final place that they would arrive. We never leave them there. We only go there so that we can have rapport with them, and then we move them to something else. But the other two states are very resourceful. So let's say that you're getting into a module which is going to require them to do some research. Research requires curiosity, intellectual curiosity. So standing in the C location that you've already established as an anchor is going to be very powerful. Now you're able to deliver your message from the place of curiosity. They already know subconsciously that when you stand there, that elicits the ideas of curiosity. And I remember him being curious about college, about psychology, about learning, and so forth. Maybe they're not consciously having that discussion with themselves, but subconsciously they're tuned into the fact that that is the anchor. So you've already got them there. Now, standing in the curiosity location, you're delivering information about how they need to go out and research things for themselves, how they need to take advantage of certain resources in their environment and study NLP and look at case studies, for example, look at how other practitioners do it. We are talking about that from the curiosity anchor location. Let's say it's the end of the day and you want to make sure that your students are pumped up and that they're going to actually do their homework. So you're standing in the motivation area. Thank you for coming today. I look forward to seeing the homework that you do. And I realize that when you leave here, you're going to take care of it first before you do anything else. And I realize how pumped up you are. In fact, you don't even need to say those words, because just by standing there and talking about the homework, you've got them in motivation. You've got them tuned into the motivation anchor already. So you can just stand there and tell them, this is your homework. Enjoy it, do it, what have you, and you've already got them anchored to that. So now you understand how to move about the stage and use stage anchors. At the same time, I want you to be aware of the idea that where you are now, if you have installed these anchors, where you are becomes very important. So rather than just roaming about the stage and not paying attention to where you are, if you use this technique, you need to realize that that's an anchor, and it's there and it's going to stay there. Also realize that just as you can stack anchors with people, you can, touching certain parts of their body and anchoring something, for example, you can stack anchors on the stage. So for example, you've already got the skepticism, curiosity, and motivation anchors established on the stage. But maybe day two, you've used them quite a bit. You've used curiosity and really stood there a lot and delivered a lot of information without re-anchoring that. You've just said, okay, go ahead and research. You've stood on motivation and said, okay, do your homework, but you haven't re-anchored it. You've just used that anchor. Realize the anchors are kind of like batteries. You can drain them. So you want to reinstall them, and more importantly, you want to stack them. You want to get that charge up as much as possible. So reinstalling and stacking are essentially the same. You just stand in that area again and you elicit those ideas again. You elicit those thoughts in the person, the thoughts of curiosity, or the thoughts of motivation, or the thoughts of skepticism. You stand there and you re-anchor them in it, and that way you're stacking, you're making it more powerful. So that way, when you use it, you're going to have more charge in the battery. So just like stacking anchors or reinstalling anchors with humans works on their anatomy, it also works on stage when you're anchoring them to certain locations. So keep in mind the power of stage anchors and use them to your advantage.